This paper I just read blew my mind. It answered several questions that have been floating around in my synapses, and like any good paper should, it raised some more questions. In this video, I promise you I will do 3 things. First, I'm gonna show you new data on how, yes, how, a poor diet can deplete levels of the anti-obesity hormone GLP-1, which is the natural form of the hormone that drugs like Ozempic try to mimic. 2, I'm gonna share with you preclinical data on how to target a microbiome intestinal cell axis to augment, to raise GLP-1 hormone production to prevent metabolic syndrome. And 3, I'm gonna speculate about a potentially novel benefit of certain specific fibers in food. So the paper in question was published just 8 days ago as I record this in Nature Metabolism on July 19th, 2024. And first, for a tiny bit of background, it's already known that this hormone, GLP-1, is depleted, is decreased in various insulin resistance related disorders. This includes obesity, polycystic ovarian syndrome, which I did a different video on, and metabolic syndrome, which is a constellation of clinical features that includes low HDL cholesterol, high triglycerides, high blood pressure, excess abdominal fat, and high blood sugar. But how this occurs, how GLP-1 is reduced in insulin resistance related disorders, really hasn't been clear until now. What the researchers found, starting in a mouse model, is that levels of a bacteria in the intestines, this bacteria called Desulfovibrio, were elevated, and that elevated levels of this Desulfovibrio bacteria negatively correlated with GLP-1 levels. So higher Desulfovibrio, lower GLP-1 levels. And they also found that a diet, a westernized diet, obesogenic westernized diet, although I guess that's kind of synonymous, was sufficient to increase Desulfovibrio levels. So this relationship appears in humans as well. It's not just mice. In humans with metabolic syndrome, Desulfovibrio levels are elevated in the intestines and GLP-1 levels are reduced. And I want to reinforce, they show in this paper causality. The researchers do find that Desulfovibrio is sufficient to reduce GLP-1 production, and they also discover how this occurs, what the mechanism is, and I think it's absolutely fascinating. Basically, here's how it works. Desulfovibrio has a hydrogen sulfide-based metabolism, and Desulfovibrio generates enough hydrogen sulfide to overwhelm the detoxification systems of the gut, to the point that the hydrogen sulfide will actually damage mitochondria in intestinal L cells. L cells being the cells in the intestines that produce the incretin hormone GLP-1. Basically, the hydrogen sulfide damages the mitochondria, so there's a decrease in ATP production, disruption of mitochondrial membrane potential, and because there's an energy deficit in these L cells, they're unable to produce enough GLP-1, and GLP-1 levels go down. Now, here is where things kind of get extra crazy. There's a way to reduce hydrogen sulfide using an over-the-counter medication that you've probably heard of, bismuth subsalicylate, which is the active ingredient in Pepto-Bismol. Yeah, Pepto-Bismol. And in fact, when they treated Western diet-fed mice with this bismuth compound, they found that it did indeed prevent weight gain. It reduced hydrogen sulfide in the feces of these mice. It reduced fat mass pretty impressively. It prevented Desulfovibrio expansion, which would otherwise be induced by the westernized diet, and it increased GLP-1 levels by a lot relative to control. So